Good day, everyone. Welcome to our channel. So, I hope all of you are all doing well and safe. So, for today's video, pag-uusapan at pag-aaralan po natin ang government grant. In this video, our agenda is to learn how to recognize and measure the grant received at kung ano-ano yung mga classification niya, how to account for it, as well as the presentation, and what if the entity or the recipient of the grant fails to do or to comply to the certain conditions or the requirement attaching to the grant, and how to properly disclose it. So, according to PAS 20 or to the Philippine Accounting Standards, yung government grant daw ay isang assistance coming from the government in the form of transfer of resources to an entity in return for past or future compliance with certain conditions relating to the operating activities of the entity. So, yung government grant daw ay isang assistance coming from the government, like tulong or ayuda, like what we usually heard nowadays, right, during this pandemic, at in the form of transfer of resources. So, yung government grant, pwede siyang non-cash or cash. So, bakit ka ba binibigyan ng grant ang isang entity? Pwedeng yung entity nag-comply siya in the past or mag-comply siya in the future. So, dito daw, ini-exclude ang government assistance na kung saan mahirap lagyan ng value or halaga. So, let's define government assistance. So, yung government assistance is an action by government designed to provide an economic benefit specific to an entity or range of entities qualifying under certain criteria. So, yung government assistance is an action na kung saan ginagawa ito ng government natin para matulungan tayo, yung mga businesses, citizens, na nasasakupan niya for the betterment of the society. So, yung government grant, isang uri siya ng government assistance. Yung, di ba nga action, sabi action daw yung government assistance. So, dun sa government grant, yung action niya is the form of transfer of resources. So, yung pinagkaiba kasi nila, yung government assistance is broad kasi nga, yung actions, hindi lang naman siya limited or hindi lang naman siya about sa pag-transfer ng resources. Maraming iba't ibang ways or action na ginagawa ang government para matulungan tayo, di ba? Yung mga nasasakupan niya. So, later on, we will discuss more about government assistance.
So, ayan, punta naman tayo sa recognition and measurement ng government grant. A government grant is recognized only when there is a reasonable assurance that the entity will comply with the conditions attaching to the grant. Next is the grant will be received. So, before i-record niya entity yung grant na receive niya galing kay government, kailangan niya munang masatisfy itong dalawang recognition criteria. So, yung una na nga doon is yung letter A. Doon kasi sa matatanggap ni entity na grant, merong naka-attach na condition doon. And hindi ibig sabihin na kapag na-receive na ni entity yung grant, pwede niya na agad i-recognize yun. Ang sinasabi kasi ng standard, pwede lang i-recognize na entity yung grant na na-receive niya once na nag-comply na siya doon sa condition. Next is the grant will be received. So dito, kailangan lang siguraduhin ni entity na ma-receive niya yung grant or yung grant is receivable. Kasi kung hindi naman pala niya ma-receive yung grant, wala ring dapat i-account. Government grant shall not be recognized on a cash basis as this is not consistent with generally accepted accounting practice. So, dito sa government grant, hindi tayo gagamit ng cash basis. Ang gagamitin nating approach dito is yung accrual na kung saan yung income, nire-recognize natin siya kapag na-earn na natin and then yung expense, nire-recognize natin siya once na na-incurred na natin. And dagdag ko lang rin po dito, si entity, hindi niya pwedeng i-account yung government grant na matatanggap niya sa equity account niya kahit na yung grant na yon is walang condition. Kasi yung grant na matatanggap niya, hindi naman yun galing sa company's operation. Galing yun kay government. Kaya either i-record niya muna as liability niya, then kapag unti-unti niya nang na-earn, pwede niya nang i-income yon. Or di naman kaya, i-asset niya muna, then expense kapag nagkaroon ng depreciation. May dalawang classification yung government grant. So, una na nga rito is yung grant na related sa asset at yung grant na related sa income. So, dun muna tayo sa grant na related sa asset. This is a government grant whose primary condition is that an entity qualifying for grant shall purchase, construct, or otherwise acquire long-term asset. So, under yung grant related to asset, ito yung mga grant o tulong na nare-receive ni entity galing kay government na gagamitin niya para mag-purchase ng asset or mag-construct ng asset. Bigyan natin ng halimbawa para mas maintindihan natin. I-share ko na lang po sa inyo yung provide na example sa amin ng aming professor na si Sir Cayetano. Si government, kinausap niya si Meralco na kung pwede, tayuan ng kuryente yung isang community doon kasi yung mga nakatira doon wala pang kuryente. Ang sabi ni Meralco, malulugi kami dyan, government. Kasi sa pagpapatayo pa lang ng poste para makabitan sila ng kuryente, sobrang laki na nang gagastusin. And aside pa doon, ang konti ng mga taong nakatira dyan. Ibig sabihin, konti lang din yung magiging consumer namin. And doon pa sa pwedeng pagtayuan ng poste, may mga taong nakatira pa. Ibig sabihin, kailangan pa namin yung bayaran at kausapin para lang magamit namin yung pwestong pagtatayuan ng poste. Sabi ni government, huwag ka nang mag-alala, Meralco, dahil tutulungan kita sa magiging gastusin mo para sa pag-construct mo ng poste. So, grant related to asset, bakit? Kasi yung tulong na marireceive ni entity galing kay government, gagamitin niya yon para mag-construct ng poste, which is yung poste, asset yun ni Meralco. So, ayan. Next naman is grant related to income. By residual definition, this is a government grant other than grant related to asset. Ang sinasabi lang ng standard dito, na kapag yung grant hindi siya qualified as asset, ibig sabihin is yung grant related siya dun sa income. Kaya sinabing residual definition. Sa next slide natin siya bibigyan ng example kasi may dapat pang i-consider dito na madidiscuss sa next slide. Ngayon naman, alamin natin kung paano nire-record ni entity initially yung grant na na-receive niya. Kapag yung grant related siya sa asset, nire-record muna yun ni entity as unearned income or deferred grant income. Yung unearned income or deferred grant income, liability account yon. Bakit ni-record ni entity as utang niya yon? Kasi dun sa inattach na condition ni government sa grant, wala pa naman siyang nagagawa dun. Kaya utang niya muna yon kay government. Kapag grant related to income naman, kanina nabanggit ko na may kinukonsider dito. So, ito nga yun yung dalawa, past compliance o future compliance. Yung past compliance, ito yung mga expenses na already incurred na or napaggastusan na ni entity kaya lang nagkaroon ng problema. For example, nasunog yung business ni entity. So dito, tutulungan siya ni government para kahit papaano mapalitan yung mga ginastos niya dun sa business niya bago masunog. So, yung matatanggap na tulong dito ni entity, automatic i-record niya na yun as income niya. Bakit? Kasi dun sa ibibigay ni government, wala naman siyang hihingiing kapalit doon. Tulong niya na lang yun dun sa entity para kahit papaano makarecover si entity. Future compliance. Sa future compliance, gagastos ka pa lang dito. So, yung pag-record nito, tulad din sa grant related to asset, i-record mo siya as deferred grant income or unearned income. So, bigyan natin siya ng halimbawa. So, for example, si Kagawad, humingi siya ng tulong kay government kasi plano niyang bigyan ng allowance yung mga elderly kahit 1,000 kada month para kahit papaano mabili nila yung pangangailangan nila. So, si government willing naman siyang tulungan si Kagawad. So, yung marireceive na tulong ni Kagawad galing kay government, ibibigay niya yun dun sa mga elderly. So, gagastos pa lang siya dito dahil ibibigay niya pa lang naman. So, kanina nalaman na natin kung kailan pwedeng i-recognize ni entity yung government grant. And nalaman na rin natin kung paano nire-record ni entity initially yung grant na ma-receive niya. So, paano nga ulit yon? Diba nire-record ni entity yung grant na na-receive niya as liability account. Tinatawag niya tong unearned income or deferred grant income. So, bakit niya nga ba nire-record yun as utang niya? Kasi wala pa siyang nagagawa dun sa condition na inattach ni government. So, paano naman kung may nagawa na siya dun sa condition? So, ang ibig sabihin lang niyan, magre-recognize na tayo ng grant income. So, ngayon, aalamin natin kung paano computein yung grant income kada period. So, kapag yung grant related sa asset, straight line method lang yung gagamitin natin dito. So, dito, yung makukompute natin grant income, equal lang siya kada period. So, yung amount ng grants na na-receive natin, divide lang natin yun sa useful life. Yung useful life na tinutukoy dito is yan yung taon na kung hanggang kailan tayo mabe-benefit ng grant, and yan din yung taon na kung hanggang kailan natin gagawin yung condition. Kapag government grant na related sa income, yung pag-compute ng grant income nito is depende dun sa magagastos kada taon. So, yung grant income dito, hindi na siya equal kada period kasi may naka-indicate to dun sa problem kung magkano yung nagastos ng entity sa unang taon, sa pangalawang taon, etc. So, ang gagawin lang dito ni entity para makompute yung grant income, yung amount ng grant na receive niya, then multiply dun sa nagastos niya sa isang taon, then i-divide niya lang dun sa total ng lahat ng...
So, paano nga ba mag-entry or mag-journalize ng grant received from the government? So, pag naka-receive ka ng grant, syempre hindi mo muna siya i-record as income kasi nga unearned pa yan or liability pa yan. So, kapag naka-receive ka ng grant, i-credit mo muna yun kasi nga normal balance ng liability is credit. Tapos, each year na nag-incurred ka ng mga expenses in fulfilling the condition of the grant, pwede ka na mag-record ng grant income. So, halimbawa, 5 million yung grant na receive mo from the government. Tapos, nakapag-realize ka ng grant income na 2 million at the end of the period. So, ang unearned mo na lang na ma-receive in the future is 3 million. So, to record the grant received, we debit cash and we credit unearned income. So, to realize grant income, we debit unearned grant income and credit grant income. So, let's have an example. So, for illustration 1, an entity received a grant of 15 million from the government for the purpose of defraying safety and environment expenses over the period of 3 years. The safety and environment expenses will be incurred by the entity as follows. So, for the first year, nakapag-incurred ng 2 million expenses ang entity. For the second year, 3 million. And for the third year, 5 million. In total of 10 million. So, for the first year, we entry the grant received. So, we debit cash, 15 million, and credit deferred grant income, 15 million. So, yung deferred grant income, unearned grant income din yun. Kasi nga, we are more familiar to unearned, diba? compared to deferred. So, kapag nakita nyo yung deferred, same lang yan sa unearned grant income. So, to record the deferred grant income realized, so with the deferred grant income 3 million and grant income 3 million. So, paano nangyari yun? So, di ba nga, dun sa formula na natutunan natin kanina, ang ginawa niya is yung grant received multiplied by expense incurred divided by the total expenses incurred. So, or total expected expense. So, yung grant na 15 million multiplied, i-fraction form mo yung 2 million and 10 million. So, 2 over 10 multiplied by 15 million. So, we have 3 million grant income realized. So, i-record mo din ang environmental expenses. So, for the second year, ganun pa din. Except na hindi ka na syempre magre-record ng grant received kasi nga na-record mo na yun sa first year. So, yung for the second year, ang i-record mo na lang is yung deferred grant income tas yung environmental expenses. Same pa rin yung formula na gagamitin mo. Yung sa grant related to income na formula pa rin ang gagamitin mo. Okay? So, next one. So, dito naman, pag-usapan natin yung grant related to depreciable asset siya. So, let's read first. An entity received a grant of 50 million from the government for the acquisition of a chemical facility with an estimated cost of 80 million and useful life of 5 years. Accordingly, the grant is allocated as income over 5 years, depending on the method of depreciation. The straight line method is used. So, sabi dito sa past 20, yung grant related to depreciable asset daw shall be recognized as income over the period's end in proportion to the depreciation of the related assets. To further understand this, let's do the journalizing. So, journal entries for the first year is we debit cash and credit grant income to record the government grant received na 50 million. Tapos, syempre, i-record din natin yung acquisition of the chemical facility na 80 million, tas cash. Tapos, yung depreciation, di ba? Sabi, yung depreciation daw ginamit ay straight line method. So, you just divide the amount of the chemical facility na 80 million over the useful life of 5 years. So, we have 16 million. Tapos, yung ma-realize na grant income daw for the first year is 10 million. So, gagawin lang natin yung formula na binigay kanina sa grants related to asset. So, the formula is amount of grants over the useful life of the asset. So, 50 million divide 5 years, we have 10 million.